Welcome to The Explainer. Let's dive right into this, because today we are taking a fast-paced cinematic dive into 15,000 years of incredibly dense, interlocking fictional history, the complete world of Dune. We're not just skimming the surface of a boy in the desert. No, we're unpacking the massive, tectonic shifts of human history that made his arrival an absolute, unavoidable catastrophe. So gear up, because we are covering the first war against machines, the complete restructuring of human evolution, and the tragic fall of, well, everything. But to really understand this universe, we gotta start right here. Arrakis. Picture it. No oceans, no forests, literally no rivers. It is hands down the most inhospitable place human beings have ever tried to live. Yet somehow, every emperor, every baron, the secret sisterhoods, the navigators' folding space, every single power structure in the known universe absolutely depends on it. Why? Because of one single substance found nowhere else, the spice melange. But to grasp exactly why one teenage boy on this hostile rock destroyed 10,000 years of carefully maintained order, we really have to look back at the 15,000-year history that set the stage.
All right, Section 1, the War Against Machines.
So, jump back roughly 20,000 years before our main story even begins. Humanity had built this massive civilization that was totally dependent on AI. And, spoiler alert, the machines eventually turned on them. This timeline right here bridges that mind-boggling gap of deep time. It kicks off in 201 BG, that's before Guild, when humanity fought the Butlerian Jihad. This was a brutal century-long war for survival against the thinking machines. They won, obviously, but you can trace an unbroken chain of cause and effect across thousands of years, straight to 10,191 AG, after Guild, which is when House Atreides actually arrives on Arrakis. The decisions made way back at the start completely dictate how it all ends.
Because winning that war, it left humanity with a massive problem. They adopted the strict, ancient commandment, "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind." Now, this wasn't just a friendly suggestion. It was a religious law literally carved into the soul of the species. But think about it. How do you run an interstellar civilization without supercomputers? You can't calculate space travel, you can't manage agricultural systems, you can't even organize basic supply chains. The galaxy was, for all intents and purposes, completely crippled.
Which brings us to Section 2, replacing AI with humans. Since they couldn't build machines to do the thinking anymore, humanity came up with a pretty terrifying workaround. They forced human minds and bodies to evolve into three distinct pillars to replace the AI. First up, you have the mentats. These are basically human computers, trained from childhood in hyper-advanced logic to run calculations in seconds that used to take entire server farms. Then, the Spacing Guild. Without AI navigation, they rely on guild navigators, humans who consume just massive, enormous quantities of spice to safely fold space and travel instantaneously between stars. And finally, the Bene Gesserit, a highly secretive sisterhood that completely controls cellular biology and manipulates galactic politics using a weaponized speech known as the Voice.
And for the Bene Gesserit, time is absolutely their ultimate weapon. I mean, they spent 10,000 years running a secret galactic eugenics program to produce the Kwisatz Haderach. They were tracking and directing the interbreeding of noble houses over millennia. And their goal wasn't just political power. No, they wanted to literally breed a transcendent, godlike superbeing, someone who could bridge space and time, access all ancestral memory, and see every possible future simultaneously. They essentially wanted to build a being that could control the universe.
Let's move to Section 3, Arrakis and the Spice. Now here is the incredible catch to everything we just went over. The Guild Navigators, the Mentats, the Bene Gesserit Revered Mothers. Every single one of these wildly evolved human capabilities runs exclusively on a single fuel found only on Arrakis. And the process is wild. It starts when these tiny alien creatures called sand trout encase all the underground water. Down beneath the sand, biological heat and immense pressure build up, which produces a chemical byproduct, the invaluable spice melange. Finally, those sand trout morph into colossal, utterly destructive sandworms. So think about it. The most important substance in the entire universe, the one thing holding all human civilization together, is quite literally just a biological byproduct of massive desert monsters.
But Arrakis isn't just an empty rock. It's home to the Fremen, who are these incredibly hardened desert survivalists. Now, the Bene Gesserit sisterhood knew they might actually need some leverage there one day, so they deployed what's called the Missionaria Protectiva. Over centuries, they quietly planted synthetic religious prophecies among the Fremen. They seeded these stories of an outsider messiah who would eventually come to lead them to paradise. It was a brilliant, incredibly cynical trap designed to protect the sisterhood. But, as we'll see, it's a trap that backfires severely. Which brings us to Section 4, the Imperium's fragile balance. Because this universe isn't just ecologically fascinating, right? It's a cutthroat political thriller that's constantly teetering on the edge of total collapse. On one side, you've got the Padishah Emperor ruling with the sheer legitimacy of a 10,000-year-old throne and backed by the Sardaukar, this unmatched absolute military force. But on the other side, you have the counterweight, the Landsraad, which is the assembly of great noble houses, and Choam, the Universal Development Corporation that controls literally all galactic commerce. So the Emperor has the military, but the combined houses have all the economic leverage. And the invisible string tying it all together, whoever controls Arrakis and the spice trade controls the wealth that funds those very armies.
Let's look at Section 5, the fall of House Atreides. So the Honorable Duke Leto Atreides was gaining a bit too much respect and popularity among the other great houses. He was becoming a genuine political threat. To fix this, the Emperor pulls a masterstroke. He reassigns the stewardship of Arrakis to House Atreides. It's a trap, obviously, but there are a few massive variables that complicate things. Duke Leto knows full well it's an execution dressed as a promotion, but he walks right into it anyway, for a shot at unprecedented power. Meanwhile, his partner, Lady Jessica, completely defied Bene Gesserit orders to birth a daughter for their breeding program and instead had a son, Paul. So you have a 15-year-old Paul arriving on Arrakis, heavily armed with Mentat computation skills and forbidden Bene Gesserit training. He is already way too powerful as he steps into the deadliest trap in the galaxy.
And you know what? The trap springs exactly as planned. Imperial Sardaukar strike in the middle of the night, disguised in Harkonnen colors, and they completely destroy House Atreides. The Emperor literally breaks his own fundamental laws, risking a full-scale galactic war just to wipe out Duke Leto. The Atreides forces are slaughtered. But Leto's concubine, Jessica, and his son Paul manage to escape. They flee with absolutely nothing into the lethal deep desert, a place that, by all accounts, is supposed to kill everything.
And now for Section 6, the tragedy of Paul Atreides. Except the deep desert of Arrakis didn't kill Paul and Jessica. They were found by the Fremen. And out there, the desert acted as a crucible. I mean, think about it. What happens when a genetically engineered mind, the literal culmination of a 10,000-year breeding program, is suddenly flooded day after day with the universe's most powerful mind-expanding substance? Well, the spice violently unlocks Paul's prescience. The trap that Bene Gesserit set thousands of years ago springs on Paul, revealing the inescapable, absolute future. And the vision he sees is horrific. It's an unavoidable vision of a holy war burning across the stars in his name. Because of those synthetic prophecies planted by the Missionaria Protectiva centuries ago, the Fremen genuinely view Paul as their messiah. It's the ultimate cosmic tragedy. He realizes that no matter what path he chooses, no matter what he does, his very presence is going to ignite a galactic jihad that he is completely powerless to stop. So he accepts his role, and the climax is just absolutely explosive. Paul fully embraces becoming the Fremen leader, muad'dib. His Fremen army pulls off the impossible. They ride massive sandworms straight into battle. Paul actually uses forbidden atomic weapons to obliterate the Shield Wall Mountains, and in one brutal cinematic strike, the supposedly invincible Imperial Sardaukar are completely broken by desert warriors who have survived conditions the Emperor's troops couldn't even fathom. And just like that, Paul Atreides takes the Golden Lion throne. The universe surrenders. But here's the thing. He doesn't win just by force of arms alone. He wins by threatening to destroy all the spice on Arrakis. He effectively holds the entire galactic economy, all space travel, and frankly all of human civilization hostage. He takes absolute control, but in doing so, he traps himself inside his own terrifying victory. 12 billion. Let that number just sit for a second. 12 billion people died in the holy war fought in his name. That is the staggering, almost unimaginable death toll that author Frank Herbert wanted us to confront. This was the exact vision Paul couldn't prevent. The core philosophical tragedy of this entire 15,000-year history really comes down to this: beware the Messiah who promises that following them is simpler than thinking for yourself. Frank Herbert absolutely did not write this as some glorious hero's journey. It's a terrifying warning. The problem isn't necessarily the quality of the leader, the problem is the act of worship itself. Giving absolute power to a single messianic figure, even one who can literally see the future, creates absolute catastrophe.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. When a universe decides you are the only answer, what does that absolute power truly cost you? It's a question that makes you rethink everything we've just covered about prophecy, control, and the inescapable trap of destiny. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the explainer, and I'll catch you next time.